If you ever had a question about what a will is, what a trust is, and what the difference is between them, who needs them, how much do they cost, things of that nature, today we're going to hopefully get all those questions answered for you. With me today I have Alan McCroskey, a good friend of mine, and he is an expert in this area with wills and trusts. So with that, welcome Alan. Thanks for coming to the podcast.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be here.
Awesome. So I have a whole bunch of questions. We went over these questions earlier, right? But I think we will do a good service for our clientele and really educating everyone on really what wills and trusts are, number one. Number two, I guess, like, who would need them, right? Or are they actually necessary? Things of that nature. And then we can dive down into a little bit more nitty-gritty stuff. For full disclosure, I have used Alan for my own trusts. So we have trusts with Alan's company, and I'll let Alan give himself a nice little introductory and tell people about the company and everything.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So Alan McCroskey founded a company 22 years ago called Secure Financial Group in Brentwood, Tennessee. We focus areas of risk management for folks, estate planning, retirement planning, insurance services, and charitable planning. So we know that a lot of people are confused when they get to their retirement and don't know what's what. They see their statements and they don't know what a will is, how it's different from the trust, and they have answers. And the truth of the matter is, getting information from the internet is like drinking from a fire hose. So we try to break it down to what's important that they really need to know up front. So I'm an estate planning advisor, so I handle all legal information, and then we have an attorney who answers all legal advice questions. So it works out very well, and people can get their answers answered up front to see if they want to pursue a will or a trust and what the difference is.
That, I like that dynamic as well, because you have your legal aspect, which there is a lot of legal aspect to this, and then you have the individual who can really speak to like the whole planning aspect, like where we should probably look at what might be best for you and your situation and things like that. Right. So I really, really like that. So I guess let's just really get right into it. So we all heard everyone needs a will. So, like, what exactly is a will, and does everyone need one?
Well, that's a great question, because we do financial seminars, and people come all the time, and they think, well, I've got a will, I'm not going to probate. So they relate a will to I'm avoiding probate. When they find out that they are going to go, it's a straight ticket to probate, they're really confused.
Can you, real fast before you expand, can you describe or explain what actually probate is? Because I can guarantee you there's a lot of people that haven't even heard of what that term is.
Yeah. So the word probate is a Latin word. It means to prove the will. So when someone passes away here in the United States, you have to pass legal title to whatever asset you have to the next heir. So you can't do that unless you have an orderly fashion to do that. And we call it probate. So it's a system. It has about 33 steps to it. It's a long triage of steps to get to finally from here it is to finally it's in your hands. So sometimes in the States it takes 2-3 years in probate. The average in Tennessee, last time I looked it up, was 17 months. It's a long process. Wow. In fact, when things happen like COVID, that pushes things back even further.
Wow.
So it's something that can be totally avoidable, though. That's the good news.
Yeah, that's. I didn't even know about that. 33 different steps it could take to getting from point A to point B to just getting what was really assigned to you in a will, I assume, right? Or even but without that. So wow, that's really, I had no idea about that. That's pretty wild. So now, how does that play into the whole estate planning process? So we have the will. It doesn't necessarily save you from probate, right? Am I right about that?
The will?
Yeah. Or is that really part, or is that the first step in the probate process?
Yeah. Well, you either have a will, which ends in probate, or you die intestate, means no will at all.
Okay.
So you have no will at all. The state of Tennessee has one for you, or whatever state you live in.
Okay.
Theirs is much more expensive because they appoint all the people to see what the value of the estate is, and they appoint CPAs and accountants, all sorts of people to kind of monitor that so that it goes the right a legal way.
So does every state have that in place for those individuals or couples or whatnot that have nothing in place? Does every state have something like that, like Tennessee does, or no?
There are some states that vary.
Okay.
They're different.
Okay.
I know. I think I heard maybe Pennsylvania may be one state.
Okay.
There's some states that don't follow the same path.
Gotcha.
But in Tennessee, you will have to go through probate. Anything over $50,000 in value in Tennessee has to go through probate.
Oh, wow. So that's something for you guys out there. If you're in the state of Tennessee and you didn't know about that, that's some good information there. And if you're not in Tennessee and you're in one of the other 49 states, that's something that you need to kind of go and look for yourselves and kind of do your own research as to what the process is there. Because if there's really nothing in place, there's a lot of things that can kind of get muddied up. So that's something to definitely look at. Now, that's a will and some probate there. Now, what is the difference? Now, what is a trust? So that's kind of like, I'd look at it like the next level type of thing, like in the next phase. So you have your will, it's the most basic. There's a lot of things that can be put into a will, a lot of things that people think are secured within a will. I've heard stories that wills can still be contested and it can drag out certain processes even there. So I guess the next step would be then a trust. So what is a trust and how does it differ from a will?
Well, Chris, I like to put it like this. If you have a will, you're basically giving your instructions to the court.
Okay.
If you have a trust, you're giving your instructions to the family. Now,
Okay.
right out of the bat, which would you prefer?
Well, I like things for my family.
Absolutely.
not to
Keep the
bring
control in
Exactly.
the family.
Yes.
Absolutely. So what a trust does actually pre-probates your estate. So when you have a trust, it has more controls and throttles so that you've pre-selected a successor trustee, which is a manager, rather than executor in a will. And then they take it through. So now you actually can meter out some of the assets to children at certain ages if you want to. You have a lot more controls with a trust. And again, it doesn't go through probate, this long process, where a will does not have those controls.
So that's maybe like a big misconception, right? So, okay, so wills from what I'm hearing, they're not the all end be all, right? There's an extra step. They can be contested. They can go through probate and all that stuff, which people think that if they just have a will, they're good.
Right.
There's no need to go anywhere else. So we learned that that's a misconception. Now, trusts, people think they're overcomplicated. I used to think that without doing some research, like I don't need a trust. Who needs a trust and all that stuff? So that's another misconception there, right? Because it's more about not the idea of who needs one. It's more about the function of what it does and who the control stays with. Am I along the right lines there?
True, yeah. Because if you have a will, basically the control leaves the family and goes into the hands of the courts. So the courts and the probate fees. In fact, AARP did a study maybe a couple of decades ago, and they said that the total cost of probate was approaching $2 billion a year in probate. It's a huge amount of money, and it's totally avoidable. And a lot of people, to go along with that, a lot of people think that a trust, it's too complicated and it's just for the wealthy.
Right. Like that's the whole thing. It's like I don't have that much wealth or whatever's in my family. We're just going to pass it down, but this is a form of doing that. That whole process.
Right. So Chris, hang on to these numbers. 4 to 10% is the average cost of probate of the total estate. You figure what you have in your estate.
Max of 10%?
4 to 10% in probate fees.
Wow. Just fees?
Fees. That's what the attorneys can charge. And so that was also documented in that survey, the study that the AARP did. So it's a long process, and the thing about probate is a lot of people think, I'm not wealthy. Why should I need a trust? Because they think of trust, think of wealth.
Right.
Well, there's so many synonyms to trust. There's trust for money to dole out to beneficiaries later. There's living trust. There's so many different types of trust, and that's what confuses people. Right.
But, and I can tell you that I was in one of those. Definitely had that type of a mindset at first, right? And then you start learning a little bit more, and you start researching and what's protected. And I can tell you this: upon my journey, I looked at everything as wanting more control. right? Who has more control over the hard-earned income, hard-earned money that I've worked for, my wife's worked for, we've invested in, and things like that? Who has more control? And you'd be very, very surprised as to how much control you actually don't have with the conventional way of thinking and doing things. I know off camera we were talking a little bit about that earlier, just in finances in general,
Right.
on how much perceived control a person may have when it comes to their money, and with the different types of retirement accounts, and even now in the most recent news, the Dell family putting out some money into the quote-unquote Trump accounts starting in next year in July, which is just another 401k IRA type of thing. Pros and cons. I can understand the good intention, but there is definitely some control issues with those type of accounts. So this is really, really good stuff. So I think that's where the shift is. It's more of like where the control lies with those two.
Right. And the thing about wealth, don't think about the mansion. Think about the mission. So
I like that.
You can let your estate go through probate, and the heirs taken through probate, it can wreck their life.
Yeah.
Back when someone's passing away, you want to grieve their passing, you're having to find an attorney to open up a probate case, which is going to last probably over a year or so. So if you love your children, help them with a trust. Kind of give them some order to that. And that's probably.
So that leads me to this. So if someone is looking to start, okay, like they don't know, like they're watching us now and they're like, you know what? Okay, where do I actually begin? Do they go right to a trust, or do they start with a will, or bypass the will and go right to the trust? What, is one more expensive or less expensive? Like, if someone is just watching us and, middle class America, and they don't have anything in place, what is like the first thing they should really, really look for?
Well, the first thing they should look for, depending on their age, I mean, the very first level of estate planning when you're young and getting started is life insurance. That's your estate plan. I
like that idea.
Life insurance has so many different purposes and uses. So the next level would be, obviously, say you get married, young marrieds. We got married, and first thing I thought, oh gosh, I need to get a will. So I had a friend I went to college with.
You were better than me on that. It took me a while to get a will.
Well, that's because I had a friend I went to college with. He became an attorney and said, hey, I can help you. So he set us up. We did it. We put it in a safe deposit box or our safe, and then we didn't look at it for years and years and years until we had to start having kids.
Okay.
And then we thought, gosh, well, what happens if we're not there? He's going to take care of the kids. So there's something called guardianship.
Okay, yes,
right. You guys were very interested in that when we spoke with you.
Yeah.
Because you've got 3 precious kids. And
yes.
All under the age of 18. And, even an 18-year-old needs some type of estate plan. A lot of people have wills, but, wills do nothing for you until you die.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? You just said the magic word. Die related to death. It's mortality, A lot of people actually don't want to think about that. They think it's like too morbid of a concept. And then you go along what you were just talking about, the whole line of oversight or beneficiaries or guardianship. It's like all these different terms that are like, again, morbid type of thinking, like I'm no longer going to be here. But I can understand that perception, but then the long scope is, how do I help those that are left behind, right? How do I keep those who I'm leaving behind protected, safe, taken care of as much as possible? I love that idea. I love that whole concept. And again, you were much quicker to understanding a whole will, because Gordon and I did not get a will until I think maybe until Cameron was born. And that's when we first had our first will and whatnot. And then the next thing is, you mentioned a little bit on that, is as your journey progresses, you have to update things, right? Life changes. Life happens and changes quite rapidly. It could happen. Something could happen the next day, and things like that. So, how often do trusts, wills, What are some milestones that should definitely be like check marks and like, hey, listen, we need to address it, or if something happens in between your time, like, oh, we need to update. Like, can you speak to that? Like, give me like an idea, or give our audience an idea of when these things should be updated, how often, and looked at least.
Sure. Well, I think you mentioned before, life changes, and people like I got that will when we first got married, and it went in our safe, and we didn't look at it for years.
Yeah.
But major life events, if you have kids, if you move to a different state, I can't tell you how many times people come into our office and they've got I've got a will, and it's from Michigan.
Right. We had one from New York.
Yeah, from New York, and they either find out, learned that a lot of wills are state specific. Most all of them are. They've got state code. Where you're in California, you got California code in it, or Tennessee have Tennessee code in wills made here.
Interesting.
And also trust have sometimes, most of the time, state specific language. The trust that we helped you with has non-state specific language.
Okay.
So if you did leave our beautiful state of Tennessee and move to Florida or somewhere else,
I can tell you right now, I have no intentions on leaving.
you wouldn't have to redo your trust, the
Okay.
one you have from us.
Okay.
Now, the other thing we need to mention here too is the ancillary documents. That's your powers of attorney documents for finance, for healthcare, for guardianship, conservatorship, the living will, and all those other documents are living documents that you need while you're living. So if you have a will and someone doesn't have those living documents, that could send something into living probate, where you can't make a decision for someone because you don't have authority over them if they're incapacitated.
So,
Those things are important.
So you're saying that within a trust, there's even more components there, so that need to be handled. It's not for even when you're gone; it's for while you're actually still alive.
Right. While
So
you're
that's a whole nother level right there, also. And how often then does a person need to look at updating those type of documents, or is there like a yearly time frame? Is there bi-yearly? Is there any type of lifestyle milestone? Maybe a wealth component to it? Like, what happens, and how often should we look at those things?
Well, I think our attorneys tell us, hey, look at it on a yearly basis.
Yearly basis.
I mean, because things change so fast these days. I mean, you have kids, you have they go to college, you have grandkids, they get married. You have blended families. There's a laundry list of things that would trigger wanting to look at that. It's just a working, living document you need to keep your eyes on. And when those things change, I mean, just for example, if you have an 18-year-old about to go to college, they turn 18, no longer can you even see their grades. You're paying for their tuition. You can't even get a copy of their grades.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, but yeah, that's true.
So what happens if your child is at college and they get injured and you don't have power of attorney for health care over them? It could even be important for an 18-year-old at college to have some of these documents. So there's a lot we're talking about here, but the best thing you said with the question you asked was, how often do you look at it? It just depends.
Right.
Frequently, I know at least a year. Some attorneys say 3 to 5 years, depending on what's going on in your family.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, especially because, again, different folks are in different seasons of their life. If you're just starting off and you have just a very young family where it's maybe you and your spouse, maybe every 2-3 years you look at something, depending, right? That could be it. Maybe if you are renting and now you're buying a house, maybe you want to look at it again just to kind of update, hey, listen, now I have this particular asset added to that. Definitely, if I have kids, we want to take a look at that and have all that in there. So,
right.
Yeah, so I definitely see that, and I think it's really, really good advice just to, take a look at where you are, do a little gut check. Also, if something's pulling on you, saying, there may be something that I need to double check and look at, that's also really just pull it out and take a look at it, see what's going on with it. If you've got one, and if you don't have one, you can reach out to wherever you are in your state. We'll definitely leave also for those who may be interested in working with Alan. In the video description, we'll get your email and your company contact information. Make sure we put it in the description. So that was really, really good stuff. So now you were mentioning all the different types of trust. So this is something that really hit me when I was first looking into trusts. that there is actually different types of trusts, right? You have revocable, irrevocable, living, right? Not just living documents, but a living trust. Could you just kind of like break those down a little bit into like bite size and kind of give us the difference between them and maybe whom they would benefit more over the other?
Sure. So the basic type of trust, 95% of the time we help clients with when they come in information on, is the revocable living trust. So that revocable means what it says. I mean, you can change it. It's like liquid concrete. As long as you're living, as long as you're competent, and you have your faculties, you can make changes to your trust. You can put people in, you can take people out. It's completely revocable. Now, the other type of trust is irrevocable. Usually those types of trust, Chris, is the attorneys plan those for clients that have more complex situations. They're trying to accomplish some other things. For example...
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you mean by complex?
Well, for example, if we run across a family that's got 3 kids. Well, they got 3 kids. They probably got one kid, at least is a good money manager, and one probably not so.
Okay.
You know, maybe they're more talented in athletics or something else, you know, and they can't really manage money. We have types of irrevocable trust, like a asset management trust or beneficiary trust. So if rather than the assets, when you have a revocable living trust going directly in the hands of your kids, you can have them go in the hands of another sub-trust called an asset management trust. Well, how does that work? Well, an asset management trust is an irrevocable trust. It has a co-trustee. And the co-trustee is like a overseer that writes the checks.
Gotcha.
So if the mom and dad die and the kids at a younger age, they have this asset management trust that it flows into, then they can't just go out and buy a $50,000 sports car without having the co-trustee sign off on it.
So that's very interesting that you say that. So I did a lot of research into when I was researching onto the infinite banking process and wealth, really generational wealth. Right? Mm-hmm. You look at like history, and we all know certain names, right? The Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and all these other different entities that here in the United States still considered to be wealthy families, right? Rockefeller being one of them, in which the family still has money from when John D. Rockefeller was around doing whatever he was doing, right? So. And then you have the other side where the family like the Vanderbilt, who is still known for having a lot of money and having a lot of assets.
Definitely.
But really the family doesn't have that much of that wealth anymore. It's almost like just in name only, kind of like recognition. One of the methods that I came across was, it's aptly named the Rockefeller method. Mm-hmm. And it involved these, I believe it's these types of trusts where it's not just the document. You mentioned like another co-asset manager. So it's almost like a team that is involved helping to manage the money within that particular trust and family trust. Is that kind of like how it goes?
Yeah, that gets into a more
is that just like another level?
It is, Chris. It's more like the term comes up, and again, there's a lot of synonyms here. People refer to it as a dynasty trust.
Right. That was what it was coming across as. Yeah. So that's a little bit different than the irrevocable.
That is a form of irrevocable trust.
It's a form of it. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So a dynasty trust has lots of throttles and controls. The idea is to keep the money in the family and not let it be wasted.
There's that control factor again.
Yes, and some of these trusts, I mean, there's a law against perpetuities, but some of these trusts can run for decades and decades and decades and decades, and keep the money in the family. So those are more complex.
For sure.
And require some special attorneys to.
I can imagine definitely some attorneys there. So with those type of trusts, and again, I don't know how much you can speak to them, but when someone's looking for, like, for example, I'll give myself my biggest thing, and I know we spoke about this when we first got together, and I'm looking from a biblical perspective, as a good person leaves his family's he generational wealth, right? He leaves money to his kids.
Proverbs 13:22.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm looking from that perspective, and to me, that's where this whole concept of dynasty type of trust, and that's what led me to the Rockefeller method and so on and so forth. I'm looking at it from that perspective. Now, would you say that that's just for a particular, because the Rockefellers were wealthy, is that something that you need to have like a certain threshold, or would you recommend someone that has a certain wealth threshold should look into that? Or is it, it's for everyone? I have an idea of what it's really meant for, but what would you recommend for someone who's asking for that type of trust? Like, what information are you looking for from the family, from the individual that's looking to look up something like that?
Okay. So maybe you're referring or going towards something like charitable lead trust, maybe something like that. So you can combine your faith as well as your children in some of these trusts. You can be charitable. You have to be charitable. Have charitable bones to start with. Be a giver, and so if you fit that description and you want to bless a charity, maybe your church, maybe a worthwhile charity that you're.
So you can have charitable trusts.
You can.
Would those be separate from a familial, or could they be built in one, or is it like separate?
From your standard revocable living trust?
Yeah. So there's two separate ones then?
Yes, this would be an entirely separate trust.
Gotcha.
So a charitable lead trust, we help clients with a form of that trust if they have appreciable assets. Say they have some rental properties or a business. Maybe it's an office building that doctors work out of. And
so an appreciable asset, for those who may not know, that's it's an asset that you own that goes up in value over time. So real estate is a really good idea of that. So anything that grows in value over time is an asset. Most people also don't know this, but life insurance, whole life insurance, actually can be considered an asset as well, because it grows up in value over time. So I just wanted to make that clear distinction, because some people may not understand what an appreciable asset is.
Sure, and some of these assets for life insurance is the best thing about life insurance is tax-free. No, it's not estate tax-free.
No.
Let me clear that one up.
Yeah.
So life insurance is free, but right now our federal death tax is over $12 million a person. So unless your estate is approaching $12 million or 24 for a couple, you're not even scaring any type of federal estate tax. But it wasn't too long ago in the early 2000s that our federal estate tax was down around $4 million.
So it's grown precipitously. They've raised the bar. So that's good. That's a good thing. But there are those people that may have those type of assets and accumulation of that type of wealth that could still not be considered that wealthy. They just don't know it, right?
Right. And how do we know they're not going to lower that? Because maybe they need tax money, and one day we may look at it at $3 million or $2 million.
Exactly.
So,
that's a point that, again, the control aspect. There are things that we have control over, and then there were things that we don't have control over. And again, I always like to make sure that I can have as much control as possible. And again, within reason, right? That's why we say as much as possible, because ultimately we can't control everything. Only the Lord knows what He has set out for us. But as long as we're good stewards of what it is that He provides us, that's really what counts. And I don't like the idea personally, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I personally don't like the idea of just, other than cooking, setting, and forgetting, I don't necessarily like that with my money. I want to have more of an active role in understanding where my money's going, how my money is doing. Is it profiting us? Is it hurting us? Is it in safe versus risky? How much is in the risky, and things of that nature? So that's how I feel when it comes to this. With trusts, life insurance, do you think that more people should have a view on this and get onto it a little bit earlier rather than later in life? Like, what's the benefit of, let's say, getting that life insurance policy or getting that trust earlier rather than later?
Well, life insurance would come first.
I agree
Definitely.
with that.
Even whatever age you're in, if you're out and you're you've got a house or car, you've got assets, you've got bills. I mean, life insurance can pay off those bills for you.
Yes, sir.
So many, there's buy-sell agreements. There's and a lot of clients want to leave money for their kids. And what happens is mostly what I see, and you probably see too, as a financial coach, is that people, they'll buy a term policy that's good for 20, maybe 30 years. And when they get to be age 55, guess what? That term is ending. And now they're 55, they're 30 years older, and the money and the cost is much more.
Right.
There's other things like whole life that you can actually have, permanent type insurances that you can have, and it goes for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because someone may still have some debt, maybe, or you want to leave money to your children.
That's the biggest thing, because again, the generational aspect is really where I like to focus on. The other thing is the costs of life insurance, right? There's a big stigma, and one that I had. I'll be honest. I was one of those Dave Ramsey people that was, whole life is a scam, and it's worthless, and all you need is term, and you Primerica, right? Buy term, invest the difference. Right. That type of mantra. And there is some truth. You can't say that it's not 100% wrong, right? But you can't say it's 100% right either. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. It's all about what season you're in and what you're, where you are as far as making money. Term may be the only thing that's viable for someone. I would say, if that's the case, maybe we look into things called convertible term, which you start with a lower term, and then after a certain term, you feel like now you can flip it over into a whole life policy, right? That's one avenue. So all these, there's so much out there, and I guarantee you people don't know about this stuff, Alan. Because I coming from my background, I thought that I was kind of well-learned person, having a doctorate degree and everything. And let me tell you, I may have a doctorate degree in pharmacy, but when it comes to money, it's a whole different ballgame. And even those who have like PhDs and all these other letters behind their name, it's like they may not even know really the full thing. Can you talk a little bit about that? What you've seen in your experience and in being in the industry for much longer than I have?
Sure. I think, the education for people out there in general, they don't understand life insurance. I remember when I first got married and I first bought my first life insurance policy, and I heard Dave Ramsey, buy a term, invest the difference, and all that. And so I thought, well, I just need to get a term policy.
And we got to be careful because, Dave, we're in Tennessee. We're in Dave Ramsey land here. So he's always listening. So
yeah.
Just kidding. But
so I did that. I went and bought a term policy.
Yeah.
And but I didn't ask a lot of questions because I didn't want to appear I didn't know.
Right.
So I didn't ask many questions, and I got my term policy. But later in life, I realized, gosh, what if I need insurance past that? And I'm uninsurable. Maybe someone has a cancer, gets some type of disease where you can't get insurance.
Right.
So I took the philosophy of I had a term because that's the most amount I could get at the least amount of dollars at that time when kids were small.
Correct.
And but I combined it with a permanent policy too. So I had one of each.
Correct.
So I could go past that term and still be covered with my wife, any debt that I may have, and cover that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I had an idea of what it was, and I looked at it falsely, and I'll be honest here. I looked at life insurance as something that you don't necessarily need if you invest your money, in quote unquote, invest your money properly, right? It was one of those things where, I'm going to have it in the market. The market always goes up. It doesn't matter. It always goes up. But then someone asked the question to me, okay, market does tend to go up. You look at any chart, right, from 1900 all the way to current, it has trended up with some really large spikes up and some really large spikes down, but overall up. Now, I said, well, there's my proof, right? There's your proof. It always goes up. Then the question came to me, okay, but where in that 100 years are you? And at what time are you going to be in the future? So I said, well, what do you mean? Take the last 30 years and look at that. Now it still goes up, true, but now look at those dips and where you may be or where that person was at that time, what happens. So basically, we'll have to go and use, and I like to use it because it's most recent in my life, and from what I remember was the 2008, 2009 like real estate crash, right? Where there were families that lost somewhere upwards of 40, 50, even 60% of their value was gone in the matter of months. And what people don't realize is that if someone was over leveraged in the market at that time and you lost 50% of your value and you were about to retire, maybe in a year, 2 years, and now 50% of what your nest egg was to live on for the rest of your life is now gone, you're now forced to continue to work. Right. Because what you knew was going to last you another 20, 30 years now is only available to get you 10 years. And that isn't, if they were in good shape, you know, because we all know we're living longer. Modern medicine is making us live longer.
True.
People are more understanding of health, of how to keep one's self healthy with nutrition, with regular checkups. Things of these, you know, things like this are definitely getting us closer and closer to living like Moses, and as long as Moses did. So what we need to understand there is that factor, that really set off a light bulb. It was like, it made me sit back and like look at it and say, wait a second, there's something there. Yeah, it may always go up, but I don't have anything on the back end, right? Do you still think that mindset holds true to today, or are people kind of waking up and looking at it a little bit differently?
Well, I think we see people from, we work with all ages, but we have a focus work. A lot of people that are nearing retirement or in retirement, and they really start thinking more seriously about the estate plan. And you're right. I think when people look at an estate plan and go, "This is how it's going to go down, honey," when you see your name in print that this is where it's going to go, it makes it seem like it's a little closer. But the element of planning for longer, I think. There's thousands of people that have climbed the Alps, hundreds of thousands probably, but unfortunately a lot of people die. They don't die on the way up; they die on the way down. So It's not through accumulation or preservation; it's actually in distribution.
Right.
And life insurance is a big factor that can come in there because it grows and compounds, and you have it over time, and you can be in charge because you have your own bank you can pull money from.
Right.
And when you pull money out, the money is still, you take a loan, money's still earning interest while it's sitting in the insurance policy. And people don't realize that.
People don't understand that. What Alan's talking to there is a special component with whole life. It's called cash value, right? And over time, depending on how it's structured, you can have more available to you right up front, or let it accumulate and have it more as you go down the road. And that cash value, what a lot of people don't know is that you can actually borrow against that cash value, almost Absolutely. As like a collateral. And for those who are in the know, it becomes a very good supplemental during the retirement years. And it can be a very viable supplemental way of obtaining money. And again, it's something that's just another strategy, right? We're not saying that, well, at least I'm not saying and I believe Alan would agree with me, it's not the one avenue, right? The whole idea with any type of income is you want multiple streams. And just having another tool in the tool belt is really the main crux, I believe.
I really like that, Chris. So a lot of people, they live their life, accumulation. How big is your nest egg? Yeah. What's your number?
Right.
Well, I've got this much. Well, that's great, but the real answer is, how much income can you get from that and how long?
Right.
It's about income streams. So it's longevity. Mm-hmm. So, you can't get longevity credits from stocks, from mutual funds, Bitcoin.
Right.
Even you can't really rely on if you have own rentals.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Because you've got taxes, tenants, toilets, but you also have legislative risk.
Exactly.
During COVID, you couldn't ask someone to leave your evict your person from your rental because they didn't allow that.
New York was crazy with that. New York was
So-
really, really crazy with that.
So, but life insurance, life insurance is one of those most solid things you can put your money into, because, we're in December right now. And, you watch the movie everyone does probably. It's a
Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life.
Yep.
With Jimmy
George
Stewart,
Bailey.
Donna Reed. And, and when all the banks were failing back then, the fiat, and that's another whole can of worms, talking about fiat money and the banking systems and the securities
I'll have
there.
you on another episode where we can go into that
do
and
that.
just talk about that for sure.
But for every dollar that an insurance company has, they actually have $1.08 in reserve.
Absolutely.
And banks have like 10 cents. So which one you think's more solid? So the life insurance industry, when you see buildings being built like downtown Nashville's going crazy right now, chances are a lot of life insurance companies are loaning the money for those.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So when all the banks were failing and he lost the money, he went into...
Remember the famous line, you're more worth dead than you are alive.
That's right.
Yeah.
But when the banks were failing, there's still cash value. What do you have of collateral? A cash value life insurance
That's
policy.
why it's an asset, right? It's that appreciation
Right.
asset. So I'm so glad that we talked about that, because that's, again, most people think only as a payment. I'm only paying this. Where if it's, and I always say this, if you have an agent who's just strictly putting up for the death benefit, I think they're not necessarily doing their due diligence to help that client as much as possible, because there is so much more that could be done with that whole life policy that, again, if the client is just wanting that, okay, fine, you want to serve the client. But in order to best serve the client, you might want to dig a little bit deeper, ask a little bit more. What is it that they really want out of this? Maybe there's another aspect of their life that could benefit more if we maybe structured it a little bit different, still provided them the security. Some life insurance policies now have living benefits, where you can actually obtain living benefits or have benefits while you're alive, outside of just simply the cash value and death benefit.
That's huge.
Yes.
We since we're in the market we're in with some retirees, we have life insurance policies that actually have chronic illness riders.
Exactly. Right.
That double as a long-term care benefit. So here you are, you have a life insurance policy. It's a chameleon product. Say it's $200,000 face amount, and if you have a chronic illness, and what triggers a chronic illness, as you probably know, there's six activities of daily living. If you can't do two of those,
exactly. And it's kind of a low bar. Like if you can't do two out of the six, you get that advance. You can get that access to that advance on your death benefit to help you along.
Yeah, like 2%, 3% of the face amount, and think where that would go. That would really help you in a time of need.
And some of them, it's not. So some of the companies that I work with and I'm contracted with, they even have terminal illness. So let's say you have a terminal illness that's diagnosed on you, you can get an advancement on that to help pay for the treatments up front, so that it doesn't touch any other type of nest egg or other type of monies that you may have as well. So it has maybe dual purpose, right? So these are all different things that when added into can be part of that trust that can also be utilized, right, in all different facets. And again, it's about having control, right? That's really what it comes down to. We're talking about all these different strategies that I can guarantee you 90% of the population don't even know exist. And what we're here to do, and I think we'll save more of that for another discussion, is our goal here is to educate you and provide more information for you to take more control. Now, that doesn't mean you don't necessarily need advisors. Everyone needs advisors. What is the Proverbs? Many counsel makes for a wise person.
Good success.
Right? So you need people to help you along the way. Mentors, coaches, any of those type, financial advisors, life insurance agents that know what they're doing, because there are plenty that I would say that don't. But know that there are many, many more options out there than just setting it and forgetting it in a 401k or something to that effect. We work very hard. People work very hard for their income, okay? And I believe, this is my belief, I believe a good portion of those want to see that continue on to their family down the road. I mean, after all, I've done much to obtain what I have. The Lord has provided me with so much opportunity, and I want nothing more but to continue to pass that on. And I think that's the mentality most have. And I also do believe, because I was in this situation at first, and I believe most people are, they don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. And I think our earlier part of the discussion is, right where people would start. Life insurance, you get your security. Then you move on to a will and you move on to a trust, and you progressively go over time. But the main thing is you start looking at it now. If you haven't, there is no age restriction on this stuff. There really isn't. You can start at any age. I know individuals that get life insurance at the age of 70. Is it better to start earlier? Absolutely. But is it too late? No. That's the thing. It's never ever really too late to have a strategy. One strategy may not be better at a particular age, but there are different strategies. Hey, there's even annuities, right? That's a whole nother way of having a solid income stream that you can move away from the risky market into something more stable, and then having a different type of life insurance policy to back up the money that you moved out. GULs are another thing that are really big in that type of a strategy. There's so much Man, Alan, I had a really good time with you today with this. I thought we
covered a lot of ground.
I think we did, and there's so much more. So if you'd be willing, I'd love to have you over another time, maybe after the holidays, so we can sit down and talk maybe a little bit more about life insurance and all the different ones there.
There's need out there.
Oh, 100%. So, Alan, thank you. If you want to just give a quick shout out as to what the company is again and how they can contact you.
Secure Financial Group. We're located in Brentwood, Tennessee. Our numbers are in the...
I'll put it in the description along with your email address. Yeah. So that's amazing. Alan, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. All right, guys, until the next time, see you later.